Most people think silence is weakness. They believe that ignoring someone means they lost the argument, or that walking away means they had nothing intelligent to say. Because of this belief, people rush to defend themselves. They rush to respond. They rush to prove their point. But every provocation is a psychological fishing hook. The words are only the bait. The real goal is to pull you into emotional engagement. The moment you react emotionally, you surrender control of the situation. The person who provoked you was never really seeking the truth. They were seeking a reaction, any reaction, to prove they successfully entered your mind. Centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli observed that power in social dynamics is rarely about aggression, volume, or argument. True influence is about control of attention and emotion, and sometimes the most powerful move is strategic silence. When you refuse to react, when you remain calm, when you deny someone the reaction they expected, something unusual happens. The person who tried to provoke you begins losing control of their own emotions, not because you attacked them, but because you refuse to play their psychological game. Silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty destabilizes far more than confrontation ever could. Humans constantly seek proof that they matter in others' minds. Every insult, every subtle challenge carries an invisible expectation, your reaction. Your reaction reflects their influence. Respond with anger, and you give them proof that their words affected you. Defend yourself, and you confirm their opinion holds weight. But refuse to react, and the mirror of influence shatters. Suddenly, the provocateur sees nothing. Reflected back, no anger, no defense, no emotional disturbance. Their mind immediately searches for explanations. Did I misjudge them? Are they stronger than I thought? Uncertainty replaces confidence, and a psychological fracture begins. Without feedback, the provocateur loses their measurement system. Speaking into silence feels strange. Eventually, it becomes unsettling. This is why experienced strategists rarely rush to respond. Attention itself is a form of currency, and silence withdraws that currency completely, leaving the provocateur speaking into empty psychological space while you remain calm, composed, and psychologically distant. The contrast quietly shifts the power dynamic. Machiavelli once said, "He who controls himself controls the field of power." Every interaction also contains a silent calculation most people never notice. The human brain constantly evaluates who holds the higher psychological position. People measure confidence, emotional stability, and reactions to determine the invisible hierarchy of the moment. Most people unintentionally reveal their position. When someone insults them and they rush to defend themselves, they signal that the other person's opinion carries weight. Anger shows emotional involvement. Repeated explanations communicate that the provocation entered their mind. These reactions confirm the other person's influence. But when you respond with calm indifference or strategic silence, you create status ambiguity. The provocateur cannot easily determine your position. Did you stay silent out of fear or because the interaction is beneath your attention? Without clear signals, the mind struggles to resolve the question. Unclear hierarchies are uncomfortable. The provocateur escalates, trying humor, sarcasm, or public pressure, but every failed attempt deepens ambiguity. Composure quietly shifts perception. The person pushing for reaction looks unstable, while the silent individual appears controlled. Perception matters more than explanation. By remaining calm, You gain psychological leverage without confrontation. Confrontation creates a visible battlefield, a predictable exchange of attacks and defenses. Silence, on the other hand, is an invisible wall. Provocations collide with nothing. Sarcasm, criticism, or social pressure produce no reaction. Initially, this confuses the provocateur, but frustration soon replaces confidence. They escalate, exhausting themselves emotionally, while you remain grounded. The invisible wall removes the reward provocateurs seek, confirmation that they successfully affected someone. Without that reward, irritation and confusion replace satisfaction. Over time, the dynamic quietly shifts in your favor. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." Controlled silence is not passivity. It is deliberate restraint, a recognition that engagement often strengthens the other person's position. Most confrontations follow a pattern: provocation, immediate reaction, resolution. Quick reactions allow closure, even if brief, and the brain files it away as finished. Silence disrupts this natural sequence, creating an unfinished moment that loops in the provocateur's mind. They replay what they said, imagining interpretations of your silence, questioning their assumptions. Each replay increases the emotional weight of the moment. Silence acts like delayed psychological gravity. Time works in your favor. The provocateur may begin to revisit the situation, change tone, or soften their approach, all while your own mental energy remains untouched. Machiavelli observed, "Men are driven more by the fear of uncertainty than by the certainty of loss. Uncertainty has power, and silence exploits it without aggression." When someone attempts provocation, their words are often subtle, disguised as humor or sarcasm, hiding their intentions. They rely on your reaction. Respond emotionally, and the spotlight moves from their behavior to yours. Their subtlety becomes protected by your engagement. Silence collapses this structure. The provocateur escalates, becoming more obvious in tone and intention. Observers notice the contrast. One remains calm, composed, and disciplined. The other is increasingly agitated. Escalation exposes their true motives without you ever speaking. Strategic silence allows actions to reveal truth, while your credibility remains intact. Authority is not dominance, intelligence, or volume. It is emotional immunity. Observers notice how someone behaves when challenged. A person easily provoked signals vulnerability. Emotional immunity, however, demonstrates strength. The provocateur's expected emotional reaction does not appear. Calm stillness communicates that your internal state is beyond reach, and stability under tension signals authority. Over time, others adjust their behavior around you. Some become quieter, more cautious, respectful. Stability attracts influence. Machiavelli said, "He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command," and true command begins with self-control. By mastering your emotional responses, you establish a reputation for discipline and reliability, quietly shifting social dynamics in your favor. At the start of a provocation, the provocateur believes they control the interaction. They expect you to react, defend, or argue. Silence interrupts this expectation. They wait, initially confident, but as the silence continues, their control slips. They begin questioning their own position, wondering if they miscalculated. Attention shifts inward, from you to themselves. The dynamic reverses. The provocateur now seeks acknowledgement, validation, or attention, while you remain outside the emotional turbulence. Silence becomes a filter, revealing who truly needs the interaction. Observers notice the contrast, one patient and unaffected, the other eager and reactive. Machiavelli said, "The one who controls the frame controls the outcome." Silence lets you control the frame without speaking. By refusing to engage, you force the provocateur to exist alone in the structure they created. The interaction now belongs to you, or more accurately, to the person who decides whether it deserves recognition. Most people spend their lives reacting to criticism, insults, provocations. In doing so, they give away their most valuable psychological resource, attention. Attention is power. Where attention goes, emotional energy follows. Where emotional energy goes, control weakens. Machiavellian strategy is not aggression, it is discipline. The discipline to recognize when someone is trying to pull you into a reaction. The discipline to remain calm when anger is expected. And the discipline to stay silent when speaking would only feed manipulation. Silence is not weakness, it is control. It removes the reward manipulators seek, exposes their lack of influence, and quietly shifts the power dynamic in your favor. Not every challenge deserves a response, not every insult deserves energy, not every person deserves attention. Sometimes the strongest move is doing nothing at all. When people realize they cannot move your emotions, they cannot control the interaction, and the power quietly returns to you. The person who controls their reaction controls the interaction, and the person who controls the interaction controls the outcome. Remember this: silence is power, and control begins with self-mastery.